Good evening, it's meteorologist Michael Fecka. Welcome back to the 9 p.m. all-weather, all-streaming show that we do here every night during the workdays and on weekends. We stream it out to all of our streaming platforms as well as to Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So if you are joining us from either of those platforms, please feel free to leave a comment or a question down below. I'll be happy to answer anything as I go through the forecast, but if not, I'll go through at the very end and see if I can answer anything individually for you. So let's get started here. What are we looking at for our headlines? And well, surprise, surprise, we're still on alert here for that heat and humidity. Not much has really changed from earlier or the last several days. We're on alert here through Wednesday. A dangerous heat wave has been ongoing across the tri-state. Heat index values well into the triple digits, likely ending up somewhere between 103 to 110 from now through Wednesday. And it does look like it gets even hotter for Monday and Tuesday. I'll break down all those details in just a minute. But here's a current look at a look at what our temperatures got to earlier this afternoon. We warmed all the way up into the lower 90s, 93 degrees in Evansville, Bowling Green, and Paducah, around 90 to our north there in Indianapolis. We've had this frontal boundary kind of draped through central Illinois and northern Indiana, so that's kind of what's been keeping the hot air from the nice, refreshing, and cool air to our north. So unfortunately, we're not really expecting any relief from any cold air anytime soon. Right now, temperatures, though, have dropped out of the 90s. So now we're all sitting in the low to mid 80s across the tri-state. So 85 in Evansville and Newburgh, 81 there in Henderson, and around 84 up towards Mount Carmel and Grayville, even into Oakland City. Our dew points are hanging out in the mid to upper 70s. That is oppressively humid. I mean, that is a super duper tropical humidity that is out there right now. So upper 70s, a few spots even closer to 80 degrees up towards Florida, and that is just the dew point temperature. So still factoring in the humidity, it feels like we're still 94 degrees here in the Evansville area. It still feels like 95 there in Newburgh. A little bit cooler there in Henderson. It feels like 88 degrees, but in general, I mean, it's 9 o'clock now and it still feels like the middle of a summer day. So it is quite humid out there and warm. We'll stay mild and muggy overnight tonight. We were tracking out a few very isolated little showers, but since then everything has just remained dry across the tri-state and will stay dry through the overnight hours. And then looking ahead at our forecast for this evening, temperatures will also be dropping down into the mid to upper 70s. That may warrant some areas of fog, a little bit more patchy in some spots, especially low-lying fields and along the riverbanks there. But we'll stay mostly clear in terms of our cloud cover. And looking at our rainstorm chances for the next several days, they are slight, but they do still exist for the weekend. And I think if any relief we see would be from a passing shower or downpour Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. Again, it's not a widespread chance. It is fairly isolated. So here's kind of how that looks on our future radar. Hour by hour through tonight, we'll stay quiet with mostly clear skies. We'll wake up for the first half of Saturday, with mostly sunny skies. And then as we get into the heating of the day, we'll become partly cloudy with the chance, again, for a few of those pop-up downpours or even a few thunderstorms. Then that'll kind of all taper off. Once the sun sets tomorrow, we lose that daytime heating element and the storms have no fuel to survive. And then we kind of see a repeat as we get into Sunday. Maybe a few lingering showers early in the morning, but better chances for a downpour or a thunderstorm are possible as we get into Sunday afternoon and into Sunday evening before everything kind of fizzles out as we get into Sunday night. Now, luckily, we aren't really outlooked for a flooding risk. However, with it being so humid out there and these storms being relatively slow movers wherever they go, I still think you need to keep an eye out just for some localized areas of flooding. But really, what is the top headline here is going to be the heat. Here's a current look at all the heat alerts across the tri-state right now. All of us are under that heat advisory. So that's everything that's shaded in orange. I know that most of us are shaded in this pink color, but that watch kind of lays on top of this heat advisory. So we're all still under a heat advisory for temperatures or heat index values up to 105 or greater through Sunday 7 p.m. Then as we transition into Monday and Tuesday, we were actually placed under an extreme heat watch. That goes into effect Monday afternoon and continues through Tuesday evening. And that is for potentially heat index values up to 110 or greater. So let me go ahead and show you kind of just the difference between all these different heat advisory and heat headlines. So again, that heat advisory that is in effect for the tri-state right now has been in effect since earlier this week. That is for heat index values up to 105 or greater, or you could see heat index values between 100 to 105 for 4 consecutive days, which we have more than enough accomplished that. Now, the extreme heat watch, those are usually issued well in advance, so 24 to 72 hours ahead of what we're expecting to be an extreme heat warning. So that is what's going to be happening on Monday and Tuesday. And for extreme heat warning criteria, that is dangerously hot. So heat index values of 110 or greater for 2 days or more, with nighttime lows of 75 degrees or greater. So warm lows and extremely hot temperatures during the day, or we could see heat index values of 105 or greater for 4 or more days. So that is kind of the breakdown between heat advisories, heat watches, and heat warnings. But this message is the same. At the end of the day, it is going to be hot and humid here, and you definitely need to be taking that seriously. You need to drink plenty of water and take plenty of breaks in the air conditioning, because here's a look at those heat index forecast values. So 104 for tomorrow, so still not as oppressive as what we got to yesterday and today, but still very, very hot. 104 is what it'll feel like for Saturday afternoon, then all the way back up to 107 for Sunday, and then 110, possibly even greater than that for Monday and Tuesday. And it looks like we would at least have heat advisory criteria extending into Wednesday. So that is why we are on alert there through this weekend and through Wednesday. And then it looks like we'll finally see some relief, or there is some subtle light at the end of the tunnel as we get into the end of next week for Thursday and Friday, which I'll also talk about here in just a moment. But here's a current look at some heat safety tips. I know we show this to you all the time, and as long as it's still hot and humid here, we're still going to show them to you because it's very important. Heat is the number one cause of weather-related deaths in the United States. So heat kills more Americans than anything else weather-wise. So here's a look at some heat safety tips to keep you, your friends, and your family safe. Any strenuous activity should be reduced or even rescheduled to a cooler time of day. So whether you're a daily jogger, you have to take the dogs out for the walks, you want to do that earlier in the morning, generally before 10 a.m. And then generally after 7 p.m. is when things are going to cool off or be on the cooler side of the day. Now, if you do have to be outside, you definitely want to wear lightweight, light-colored clothing that reflects that heat and sunlight away from your body, drinking plenty of water or non-alcoholic fluids. Even if you don't feel thirsty, it's important to just constantly be replenishing and hydrating yourself. And then, of course, we're all going to be sitting outside. It's nice. The sun is out. We're going to be sitting at the pool, the lakes, on a boat, what have you, still making sure you're wearing plenty of sunscreen, because if you get sunburnt, it is going to be a lot harder to regulate your temperature in the event you do start coming down with some sort of heat-related illness. So let's take a look at our heat risks. So I was just mentioning heat-related illnesses. You know, that's things like heat stroke, heat exhaustion, sunstroke. All of them are on the rise here as we go through the next couple of days. So today we finished, we're out of that, but as we get into Saturday, you'll still see we remain in that major heat risk category, and then it really expands that red color as we get into Sunday, and then again as we get into Monday and Tuesday as well. But you'll notice it does start to decrease a bit once we get into Wednesday, and then as we get into Thursday, that's when we're expecting a frontal boundary to start to work its way in from the north. Now, this frontal boundary is about a week away, so I don't like putting much faith in these cold fronts more than a week out, but it is the only real changing factor that would kind of kick us out of this heat wave. So that's kind of the next big thing outside of the heat is going to be when it's going to end. And hopefully we start to see a good end to this heat wave by the time we get into Thursday. But again, it is a week away. A lot of times this time of year, these cold fronts look really, really promising a few days out, and then as we get closer and closer, they just kind of fizzle, and then they don't make it, and then we end up staying hot. So hopefully that doesn't happen. We're expected to cool down there, but before we cool down, we do have to warm right back up. So we'll be topping out in the low to mid 90s through the weekend, and then possibly in the mid to upper 90s as we get into the beginning of next week. And then that front moves in either Wednesday night into Thursday or during the day on Thursday, and then that will help cool us down into the 80s for the for the end of next week. And here's a look at our dew point trends. That will also help alleviate some of that really, really ridiculous humidity. I mean, we're going to be up in that stifling category here for the next several days, but looking at Thursday, once that front clears, at least we drop out of the stifling category and into more normal mugginess for this time of year. So while it won't be, a nice refreshing fall cold front, it should bring us at least some relief, or at least it'll feel much better than what it has been. So that's something we can look forward to as we go through the next week. And then just to round things off here on this stream, we're going to take a look at some July statistics. For rainfall this month, we were actually below average for the majority of the month there, and then we got some very, very heavy thunderstorms and downpours just last weekend, and that actually resulted in some flooding, but it also brought our precipitation up above average for the month so far. So we were below average, and now we're up above, around 2.3 inches above where we should be for this time of year, or this time of the month. And this time of year, we are well above average in terms of precipitation. It has been a very wet year for us here in the tri-state. We're around 11.32 inches above where we should be for this year. We've accumulated just under 41 inches of rainfall, and we've got another half of the year left to go. So we'll see how what our grand total will be at the very end. And looking at our average temperature with all this heat we've had so far, our average temperature has been above average as well, 3.4 degrees above where we should be. So there's a look at your 7-day forecast, just to kind of wrap everything up in a little bit of a bow for you here. So as we go through the weekend, still going to be hot and humid, maybe not as oppressive for Saturday. We'll also see maybe the chance for a few downpours and thunderstorms to help kind of relieve us through the weekend, but that's really the only real relief we'll see up until we get into the end of next week. By Thursday, that's where we're looking at that cold front moving through. However, remember, Monday and Tuesday may be the hottest of these alert days that we have left. So we could be looking at heat index values as high as 110 to maybe even up to 115 for Monday and Tuesday. So that is when that extreme heat warning that we are currently outlooked under a watch for will kind of take shape. So keep that in mind. It's going to get hotter here before it gets better, but at least there is some relief in sight. So that is all I have here for the weather show. So let me go ahead and take a look at some comments for you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Looks like Jeanette says, good evening to you. Good evening to you as well, Lacey and Ricky. Laura Gray, she's watching from Dawson Springs. She had to go to YouTube before you came on Facebook. Yeah, we did have a little bit of an issue with Facebook right at the start of the stream, but I'm happy you're here with us. Lynn asked, how hot does it have to be to have a heat warning? Well, I can actually go right back to that graphic and just kind of show you guys what the different criteria for each heat headline is. So our heat advisories, that is where we're looking at heat index values of 105 or greater, or 100 to 105 heat index values for multiple days in a row. So 4 consecutive days would also warrant a heat advisory. Now, we are currently under a heat advisory through this weekend, and then we have that heat watch already in effect for Monday into Tuesday. And that heat watch is pretty much just your warning for the warning. So we're anticipating extreme heat warning levels of heat and humidity for Monday and Tuesday. However, because we're out in advance, we're several days ahead of time, they issue that extreme heat watch. But she mentioned, what does it take to be in a heat warning? Well, that requires our heat index values to be of 110 or greater for 2 consecutive days, with nighttime lows of 75 degrees or greater, or we could have heat index values of 105 degrees or more for 4 consecutive days. So that's kind of the nitty-gritty details between each warning and advisory and watch. So hopefully that answers your question. Jeanette says, good evening. Laura says she can't wait for Thursday when the weather cools down. I'm sure you're in the same boat as many other people. And then Robbie says, can't wait for the August heat wave. Well, that's optimistic there, Robbie. We've got to get through this one first. But yeah, that is all I have here for the forecast. So I'm going to hop off the live stream. I'll send you guys over to 14 News at 10 for all the latest news and weather headlines. Until then, everybody, stay safe, stay cool, and have a great rest of your night.